Houston Cougars, a furious comeback to knock off Duke and advance to the national championship game.
Here is Zion Chris, big hole, open sesame. Zion Chris, wow, the 72-yard house call.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to Scott Home Podcast, mid-December Houston Cougar Sports Talk Edition. We're about a week and a half from the Cougs' return to a postseason bowl game, the first time in 3 years, as we talked about last week when it became officially announced. We're very, very excited about that. Little update there as well to that little Cougar football late in the season, kind of preliminary right before the offseason kind of news we're going to add to the mix there as well. And of course, your Houston Cougar men's basketball team was back in action. Couple games with a little bit to chew on from those, but obviously our biggest topic from there is a Saturday showdown we're going to see between your Cougars and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Last real non-conference chance there. That's exciting. We're going to take a little trip down memory lane with some Houston Cougar bowl games. I think we're both very excited about that. And men's hoops aren't the only team we're going to talk about tonight. Bobby was, by his own description, maybe paraphrasing how he said exactly, elbow deep in women's hoop stats there as well. So we'll talk about that along with the Lady Cougar Hoopsters tonight. Bobby, my co-host, someone vindicated by at least a few of our listeners and followers about your occasional habit of getting a coffee from McDonald's. So we can close the loop on that there. I am more the weird one for not only ordering a coffee at McDonald's, not you. Obviously, a lot of Houston Cougar sports stuff. I'm not going to derail the intro with more McDonald's and Starbucks coffee talk than I already have. How are you doing, my good friend?
No, man, I'm going to derail it a little bit, too, because I had the conversation at work on Saturday. There was a grand opening, which for a retailer that I go to, and all of us reps were there. And we were just kind of talking. Everyone agrees that we need
it's like a playoff game. Bobby listens to Lose Yourself in the car before the store opens to get the right mood. Yeah,
exactly. Sorry. No, so all of us reps were in there, and everyone agrees that we need to remove any Starbucks that's not a regular like Starbucks. If it's in a Target, get it out of the Google Maps listing. But I was told by a couple of reps that Starbucks, they don't like. McDonald's, they actually do like. So ordering just a coffee at McDonald's isn't as insane as it maybe seems.
To be clear, this is not really a knock on the quality of McDonald's coffee per se, which I've had a number of times, and I would also rate ahead of Starbucks. And also, fully on board, as I've told you off air, fully on board with the removing the random McDonald's inside of Starbucks inside of a Target, really anything inside of a store. If it's not standalone, don't tell me about it. I'll find out about it if I happen to go into that store. Also, I think we're both on the same page with the ATM inside of a CVS. Don't want to see it. Would rather just not see it on there than get fooled into when I'm out of town on work or something like that. Pulling up to a Walgreens and being like, well, I'm at a Walgreens. And then being like, oh, I have to walk into this and hope that their insert name of my bank here, ATM is actually working. So with you there, we'll get back on the Houston Cougar talk here quickly. Got to mention, of course, as I usually do here at the top, our Patreon, patreon.com/SH podcast. We have, in addition to all of the football, excuse me, I don't know why I was coming up blank on the word football there, where we talk about plenty on here. Our football react episodes, obviously for the regular season, going to do one as time allows, because we are both actually going to be there in person at the Texas Bowl. So might have to be a next day sort of thing, much as I would love to see what the NRG security people would do, Bobby, if I tried to bring my podcast mic through there. Don't know if I'd get the best reception on that one. We'll be doing that along with all the regular season ones we did. Of course, Hoops exclusive Patreon episodes. Just dropped a new one of those, our fourth of the current season on Monday as well. Plenty of that to come this season. If any of that sounds good to you, if the thought of supporting the work that we do as a weekly independent Houston Cougar sports podcast for 10 years now sounds good to you, please go to patreon.com/SH podcast. And if you don't have the ability or interest in donating some of your discretionary income to our show, a 5-star review is very helpful too, wherever you listen to this podcast right now, wherever you are, even if you're on YouTube as well. I think you could do them there. Leave us a 5-star review. Tell people why you like the Scott and Holland podcast and help us continue to grow this little show we've been doing going on for a decade now. We will lead with the Cougar men's basketball talk tonight. Since we have last recorded, as I alluded to at the top, we have played 2 Houston Cougar men's basketball games, both against varying degrees of outmatched opponent in reverse chronological order. That would be Jackson State and the University of New Orleans. Like we do for these kind of games, generally we will group our thoughts together. Probably not enough meaningful takeaways individually to, I think, spend time on Jackson State and UNO individually. 2 games where U of H did and should have been expected to win by big margins. Bobby, what are your big takeaways from these 2 most recent Cougar men's basketball games?
Yeah, man, the first initial thought was heading in, as I was going to review these games, was simply you did what you needed to. The games weren't close at all, which is kind of what you needed. You needed to show that a little bit this season. Not that it's been a huge struggle or anything like that, but you definitely needed a couple of games where it just kind of felt like you were using them as a get right game. As weird as that sounds, I hate saying that, but we've definitely seen that happen before. So you were able to get that. You kind of look at the defense efficiency and you see it not being as tough, the defense not being as tough as it was in previous years. But that being said, in the Jackson State game, there was a full in the first half, the final 10 minutes, they just didn't score. I don't care who you're playing, no matter their offensive rating or Ken Palm rating or anything like that. If you keep a team from scoring for a full half of a half, so a full quarter essentially, that's pretty good defense, man. No matter if you want to say our defense isn't, number 1, number 2 in the country like it has been. I wasn't able to watch the second game live. I don't think I was able to watch New Orleans live. But shout out, like I said, rooms to go having the grand opening, so I just wasn't able to catch it. But I was getting some updates from you, and as much as I hate doing this, I do have to give you some credit here, Sam.
Sorry, so that's the crowd cheering. Behind me getting credit
you
here.
said you said that UNO kind of came out wanting to wear us down and kind of push us or punch us in the mouth, and we came out, took a few shots, but just kind of kept hitting back and just really kind of went blow by blow, kept hitting them with body shots, and you just kind of warmed down. And to be honest, it really felt like one of these weeks. You see this every season. There's usually about a full week where you start to see you play some overmatched teams that just can't keep with you, but you kind of use it to get right. And a week where it just seemed everything clicked. The freshmen really kind of seemed to come out of their shells. You saw Emmanuel Sharp really catch fire in that Jackson State game. I think he had 23 off the top of my head, if I looked at it correctly.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
So just a game where you saw, or a week where you saw a lot of what you wanted to see there.
I was going back through last year's schedule to kind of see, because I vaguely remembered. I know for Malik Wilson in particular, if we're talking individual stuff, there was a game where it kind of clicked for Malik. Wasn't against a big opponent. I'm pretty sure, looking at last season's schedule, it was Toledo, almost exactly. It was a little later in the month than we are right now, but it was like mid-late-ish December last year. Overmatched opponent. And it just sort of felt like after that one, everything started clicking for this basketball team. Not that you had a bad start, but you had the 1-2 week at Players Era last year. You lost to Auburn at the Toyota Center. Like it was a team that we kind of took on faith would be a pretty good one. Mm-hmm. But the earliest months of the season, maybe weren't super kind. It's sure kind of ringing some bells here, Bobby, for the start of the season we've had here. Acknowledging Jackson State's shortcomings, maybe the worst team you'll see in the schedule this year. I think in the conversation with Ryder and maybe Lehigh there, it was really nice to see, along with that Emmanuel Sharp performance you mentioned, Isaiah Harwell have a breakout game. Like when you're a guy like that, coming off a pretty major injury, freshman in the college game, which even without an injury is already its own kind of difficult adjustment. It's just nice to see the ball go in the basket sometimes. Is it going to turn him into an unstoppable, can't miss from the field the rest of the season? No. I mean, the UNO game was evidence of that. He struggled shooting from the field in that one, getting kind of extended look as Emmanuel Sharp sat for foul trouble and also for just that being a blowout of a game. Also, I think it could probably go below the radar a little bit, but it is a worthwhile positive takeaway from these two games. Nice to see JoJo Tugler not in really consistent foul trouble. We could look back on these two and just be thinking to ourselves, okay, well, that's more just because outmatched opponent than JoJo figuring anything out. And I'm not going in the opposite direction here and saying, oh, that's it. We're never going to see JoJo get 4 fouls with under 20 minutes played again. Obviously, that's not the case. But if you can just be in a position where you are not as often in the foul trouble that JoJo's been here in the earliest part of the season, I think that could be a really, really good thing for the team. It's going to make a team that's already very good very, very difficult to beat. I think time will tell whether that's an actual takeaway, but it was something nice that I saw. I think he went like 34, 35 minutes. I didn't put it in my notes, and one of those things I saw from social media, I think it was from a combination of Duarte and our friends at Go Cougs, but went a good long while without committing a foul in a basketball game, which even against a outmatched opponent is still something nice to see from a guy who's has issues with foul trouble, but a guy who's always going to be this incredible positive defense and rebounding wise. I did like in the most general sense the different ways in these two wins that you got to some big point totals. It was in the Jackson State game, big efforts from Sharp and Harwell. Against UNO is an extremely balanced effort. I think you had 4 guys in that one with at least 15 points and 7 or 8 with some decent amount there. In general, obviously, you would like to still be better at making shots than you have been, granted, and still pretty incomplete sample size for the season, but your ability to make shots and keep opponents from putting the ball in the basket seems like it's going in the right direction right now. Of course, we don't know for certain if that's a real improvement in trend we're seeing, or it's just trending in a positive direction by looks because of you playing bad teams. We don't know yet. Like I don't think you could make any assessment either way. I think only the next month or two will tell. Bad, obviously, seeing Khalifa Sacco go down against Jackson State because he's given you some really quality minutes as a veteran big man, especially as we were just talking about JoJo Tugler struggling with foul trouble. Doesn't sound like it's the worst case scenario, but big men, knees, you don't like to see it. You certainly would have liked to have gotten through that game with nothing physical happening to Khalifa Sacco like it did.
Yeah, man, and then him coming off the floor, it looked bad, right? Initially, it looked bad. So you kind of had you have a little bit of some panic there, and then the thing I thought was interesting with that kind of injury, to your point, one knees on big men is never good. It feels like that's just something they can never get right once it goes bad. But I thought it was a little weird how long into the day it was before we got official word about it. Like it really was like they were going for like second, third, and like even like fourth opinions. It was a pretty, I think we had a full day before we heard anything about it. So yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe not play until conference kind of kicks off. That would give him, let's see, until the 3rd. Even then against Cincinnati, maybe you don't put him out there. You kind of dress him. See,
I mean, Cincinnati struggled, but they also have a lot of size too. That's what concerns me there.
No, and that's where I'm like, maybe you dress him. You get him in, and then if he you tell him to go through warm ups, you get him dressed, and just if we absolutely need you, if JoJo's got 3 early, or Sanak is struggling or something like that, and you need to spell one of those guys, maybe you put him in, but maybe you slowly bring him back for a game like maybe you have him by Baylor, something like that, where he's back to kind of full strength. You're easing him into it a little bit.
Yeah, he certainly would hope you can get him back there without having to rush in any way. You alluded to part of this earlier. I wanted to zoom in on an insane Jackson State game stat. You mentioned Jackson State not scoring in the final 10 minutes of the first half. Very crazy. Over the final 10 minutes of the first half and the first 10 of the second half, U of H outscored Jackson State 44-8. After being relatively close to the first 10 minutes, not like concerningly close, but just sometimes even a bad opponent will like keep it somewhat respectable. They hit a couple like decent heat check early shots. I remember watching the game and then kind of looking at Ken Palm afterwards and like doing the math. I'm like, I know we like really like pulled away from them after the beginning, but that 44-8, like I still had myself double checking the math. That surprised me that much.
Yeah.
Really, really good stuff there. You also had in the UNO games runs of 25-4 early in this first half, 14-2 at the very beginning of the second, and then 16-3 in the latter stages of the second. You really just took care of business in both these games. I mean, like we said with some of the micro stuff, it's too early to say what that means in the big picture, but I don't believe this is a team based on these two recent games that's trending in the wrong direction. How much are we trending in the right direction? We've both kind of said it. Only a question that time is going to answer.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about those runs, that was one of the things last year's team was really good at was, what do they call it on Twitter, or the
The kill
advanced,
shots?
the kill shots.
Yeah,
We were
and
really
Evan
good at going on 10.
Miyakawa, a little thing there.
Yeah, we were really good at going on 10-0 runs against anybody. We could do it anybody, anytime.
We were spoiled by it, honestly.
Yeah. And so this year you haven't really seen those kill shots nearly as much. You've seen this team struggle offensively. So hopefully that's something we can kind of get back in the habit of doing.
No doubt. Looking ahead to the week to come, we have one Cougar men's basketball game to talk about, and it's a pretty sizable one. Certainly the last big test of the non-conference slate. The Cougs will be traveling to Newark, New Jersey to take on the current number 14 ranked Arkansas Razorbacks. One time Cougar nemesis from our much younger days, Bobby, when he was at Memphis, John Calipari. Obviously a big chance for the Cougs to get one more quality win in your resume. Not that the Big 12 is going to be short on opportunities there, but all things being equal, wouldn't mind having one more quality non-conference win to go along with the one in Birmingham over Auburn earlier this year. Bobby, tell me what you've learned about the Hogs.
Yeah, just kind of to your point, this is a big one for the Cougs. This definitely feels like a game that's the difference between like a 3 seed or a 4 seed, or if I don't know if this team as of now is a 1 seed, but if you want to
Safe assumption, no. Like you could be in the future, but obviously the season ended today. Yeah, like 3 or 4.
You're probably a 3 or 4 seed. This is the difference between that. And if you're a 3 or 4 seed, there's a big difference on who you might play later on down the that 4-13 game is always a little bit of a your tie your collar gets a little tighter if you're a 4 seed playing a 13 versus a 3 playing a 14. It just statistically it's a little less safe, it feels like. So like you said, another good opportunity for the Cougs. A win here gives you your best win on the year, kind of by a lot. Had you won that Tennessee game's probably gonna be your best win on the year, but you didn't win it. I'm saying so far on the year, I think there are opportunities in Big 12 play, like you mentioned, where we can pick up much better wins than this one. But this will be a big one for you. Kind of reviewing and previewing the game, the first thing I noticed is how well Arkansas protects the ball and doesn't turn it over. The Coug defense is really good at turning teams over, and Arkansas just doesn't do it. You're looking at a team, like I said, that just doesn't turn the ball over versus a team that turns teams over a lot. So it's going to be kind of a fun fun matchup there. I think where this game will be the most interesting is when Arkansas does have the ball. Can the Cougs slow down that Arkansas offense? They have a stud freshman, Darius Acuff. Am I saying that right?
Yes. If you're saying it wrong, I am also saying it wrong.
Yeah. Acuff, he comes in leading the Razorbacks in scoring. We're going to see, as we've seen a couple of times this year, battle of the stud freshmen. Should be really fun. This Arkansas offense is Ken Palm number 22 versus the number 5 Houston defense. So I think that's going to be probably the most exciting matchup of the weekend for the Cougs when you're watching this game, is how does that Arkansas offense do versus this really good Cougar defense. It'll be fun to watch that. But on the other end is where I think this game is going to kind of be decided when the Cougs have the ball. The Cougar offense ranked 22nd, and this Razorback defense is 38th. Can the Cougs score? Can Arkansas stop the Cougs? Right? You know that on the other end, Arkansas is going to try their best and probably do a good job of getting the ball in the bucket, but can the Cougs stop them scoring, and can the Cougs score themselves? Not that I'm giving you, a ton of things here. Can you keep the other team from scoring, and can you score? But I think the Cougs have a better opportunity of scoring than Arkansas does. I think it's going to be more exciting on the other end, but when the Cougs have the ball, it's going to that's going to be the difference in the game, is how well can this top 40, top 50 Arkansas defense actually do against this Cougar offense. So the other thing that I just kind of noticed while previewing the game is I think the Cougar offense is going to be able to get offensive rebounds. Arkansas allows offensive rebounds pretty easily. They're outside of the top 150 in offensive rebounds allowed. The Cougs, as we know, as we've watched for years and years and years, can really take advantage of the offensive rebounds, get a couple of extra possessions when the buckets aren't falling. The Cougs get 2, 3, sometimes even 4 chances at scoring, and if they can do that in this game, I think Arkansas is going to really struggle to score against this Cougar defense.
The only reason I gave the little head tilt earlier when we said that, I agree, by the way, if you beat Arkansas here, it is by any quantifiable metric your best non-conference win to date. I would say, waiting for where you played it, like that you played Auburn and Birmingham in front of a crowd that's 99% Auburn fans, a slightly worse Auburn team than Arkansas. I think that might be a little more difficult than a purely hypothetical, obviously not played out yet, when the Cougs might get over Arkansas. But I would say at most, yeah, they're comparable, and probably by the strictest definition, if you beat Arkansas, that to this point is your best non-conference win. A lot of good points there. This being a John Calipari team, it should be no surprise that there are multiple star freshmen, future kind of one-and-done pro-type guys in this roster. You mentioned one of them, Darius Acuff, a one-time consensus 5-star recruit, and the 247 Sports #1 point guard in the 2025 high school class. Him and Malik Thomas, another 5-star guy, more of a combo guy than Acuff, who's mostly come off the bench. They've kind of shared the ball handling duties, which I think makes it more impressive, even though Acuff and Thomas were among the very best recruits in this current freshman class, but looks like a very, very good freshman class, that you could have those guys doing so much of the ball handling and be one of the best teams in the country, which you said it, no exaggeration, one of the very best teams in the country at taking care of the basketball with a pretty reasonably tough non-conference schedule at this point. I think that's really impressive. Those guys are going to be at some point, probably not too long, very, very wealthy basketball players in the professional ranks. Even with all those guys, Acuff and Thomas, and the typical Calipari freshmen, all that aside, I think super senior Trevon Brazile is really the straw that stirs the metaphorical drink for this team. He, in addition to doing the kind of things that your typical big man does, he could play stretch, like he could shoot from the outside. And from what I've seen, he certainly did it against Texas Tech when they played in Dallas last Saturday. He gets under opponent players' skin. Like, he certainly made the Red Raiders very, very upset, which, you got to hand it to him. I might be mad at Trevon Brazile after this game gets played, but I certainly enjoyed seeing Texas Tech's players and coaches metaphorically poo their pants being mad at him for beating them at the American Airlines Center. Also going to mention second-year Razorback Carter Knox, one-time big recruit from Tampa. DJ Wagner, son of former NBA guy DeJuan Wagner, who's played for Calipari since his freshman year at Arkansas. Those are guys to watch as well. Just some team stuff. At least some of it you covered. One of the very best teams in the country, not turning the ball over. Worth repeating. And somewhat above average, but not exceptional at shooting the ball, but probably slightly better than the Cougs on the balance of the season. Probably what worries me the most in this game, Bobby, is that they play with the 65th fastest tempo in all of Division I. Definitely a styles contrast. The Cougs want to be deliberate. The Hogs want to get up and down. I think if you catch yourself trying to play the Hogs game, which you did at times against a much more inferior Florida State team, you try to do that here against this opponent, I don't think you'll be able to survive it maybe the way you were able to do just by being a much better, much more talented basketball team than Florida State was. Like, obviously, there's not really a comparison there. It's a much, much, much better opponent. Going to get to the free throw line more than the Cougs, so just get ready to get mad about the fact that, the box score says Arkansas has like 28 free throws and the Cougs have 9. Not to mention Arkansas defensively is really, really good at defending without fouling, which Calipari's teams kind of periodically over the years have been. They're not a super disruptive team defensively. Maybe that's related that they've been good without fouling, because unlike the Cougs, they don't really force a lot of turnovers, but I think what they've done is pretty effective. They're a slightly lower rated defensive team than offensive on the whole, but still well above average in both categories. Better at perimeter defense than interior. If the Cougs can get Tugler, Sanak, and maybe some successful drives to the hoop from your guards, that'll be a big time help. I mean, we've said it. It's a very tested opponent. They just beat Texas Tech at a neutral site game in Dallas. Also have a home win over Louisville. Their only losses this year are to very, very good, if not elite, Michigan State and Duke teams. Cougs would be their best win. As much as we've talked about the Hogs would be the Cougs' best win, Cougs would be their best win this season if they can manage it. Certainly in that category of game we bring up sometimes, that any win is a good win, where if you come back healthy from Newark to Houston kind of situation. I think Ken Pom has as a 4-point game. Yeah, any win here is a good one.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll switch to the gridiron, though. We are a week away from our full in-earnest preview of the LSU Tigers in the Texas Bowl. There'll be 2 Saturdays from now as we sit and record here on Tuesday night. But we will be talking about something that I think is one of the rarest general topics that you and I, honestly, probably the last time that we talked about a really good Houston Cougar football crowd might have predated when you were even like a guest host on this show, Bobby. It has been that fucking long, but we do have that good news. Since we last recorded, U of H was able to sell all 6,000 tickets in its school-specific allotment from the Cougar Pride VIP pre-sale before opening it up to the general public, which had kind of been planned tentatively for early last Wednesday morning. I can just say, from my experience as somebody who has been on the record, at least somewhat critical of U of H's efforts to get fans in the building for football, that as one of the people who actually got his tickets to this game through the presale, I thought U of H did a pretty good job with this. Back in November, I believe they sent out an email asking basically, hey, you're on our email list. Would you be interested in going to a bowl game? And they had, you could check all the, I think it was the 4 hypothetical destinations. They had the Texas Bowl, Alamo Bowl, Pop-Tarts Bowl, and Liberty Bowl as the 4. I checked all of them. And then last week, it might have been actually the day they announced last Sunday, it was in the Texas Bowl.
You were telling me about it. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No,
I was
you're good.
What you were saying. My bad, brother.
You're good. I indicated I wanted 2 lower midfield tickets, hoping but not taking it as a given that I would buy them. My only criticism of UH here is that on Wednesday morning, I also got an email saying that U of H would not be doing the general sale because the pre-sale had sold out. And I saw that, and I told my dad, yeah, we're going to have to buy through Ticketmaster, only to get an email later saying that I'd successfully gotten 2 tickets through U of H's allotment, which is cool. I appreciate it. Either way, feels like the first time that the two of us, since we became the 2 primary co-hosts of the show, are talking about U of H fans possibly showing up in a positive way. And between the 2 of us, not to take away our talking points, I think feeling fairly optimistic that U of H fans are going to actually show up for a game, which weird place to be, but I think we're pretty happy to be there.
Yeah, as somebody who was very critical and tough on our fan base for not showing up to games, especially when you and I live so far from the city of Houston that we would just kill for any chance to go support these teams, any chance that we can really get. I got to give it up to our fans. Selling out the allotment is a quite an amazing accomplishment, something we should celebrate, and hopefully everyone starts to show up, even for the pre-sale. I don't know why, but I'm very confident that we are going to sell a good amount of tickets through Ticketmaster and through the general sale, not just through the U of H allotment. One of the problems with bowl games that you hear coaches or not coaches, you hear like ADs talk about is that they have these large allotments that they have to get through, and you have to buy those tickets no matter what, and it can be a financial burden. To see the Cougs kind of step up here is really exciting to see our fan base do that. Kind of a funny note that I saw today. I don't know how true it is. I haven't gone and checked primary and secondary and triple sourced it or anything like that. TCU has not sold out their allotment of Alamo Bowl tickets yet.
What?
Crazy!
People in DFW aren't dying to get down to San Antonio, a place they haven't been dozens of times.
Yeah.
before.
So just kind of funny there. But yeah, got to give it up to the fan base for getting those tickets sold. And yeah, way to go! Congrats on getting your allotment, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say like, hey, it should be the expectation that we do this, but it's baby steps, man. Like it's baby steps to this fan base. So you gotta walk before you run. Like
Yeah, it
when it comes
you
to
know,
us, like actually showing
and
up for
like
games.
and like one thing, not to defend the fan base that I've been very hard on the last month or so, but this is like our first game is like I know we've played in the Texas Bowl before and we're going to talk about that, but like man, this is kind of a big deal, right? Like this is our first game as like our first bowl game is like a power team, a team that plays in big bowls like
Yeah.
this. Like there is no, not to again ruin something we're going to talk. There is no New Mexico Bowl. There is no Birmingham Bowl. Like the Independence Bowl was going to be like we played in it what 2 years ago or 2022, like, and we had a pretty good year that year, and that was like one of the best bowl options we had. We're disappointed with the Texas Bowl playing an SEC team. Like that, it's good to see the fan base show up our first time as as like a big league kind of team. So a power team like that. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on this topic, echo what I believe you said here last week. If you were listening and able to do so, it is unbelievably important to get out there in person to NRG Stadium, support the Cougars in the Texas Bowl. This is a chance to show the various haters and losers from the other bowl games that U of H and this fan base really does care about this football team and really will show up to support them. And I don't think
Yep.
we usually go that pom-poms and you need to show up and be there, which I think should tell you listening, it is genuinely that important. It is that big of a game. We are going from our out of town locales to be there. If you're living in the Houston area or near it, you can as well.
Yep.
And some quick Cougar football roster news. It's been pretty quiet on the transfer portal front so far, but I think that has more to do with the portal window not opening until early next month. And we have a couple departures or impending departures to discuss here, including one current season starter. So we'll start with that current season starter I just alluded to, Demetrius Hunter, who right before we recorded our last episode was reported as no longer with the U of H football program, was removed from the online roster. Hunter started most of the last 2 seasons, including all 12 games this season at center, after starting at the very end of the 23 season in place of the injured Jack Freeman. Was part of that very ballyhooed 2022 class with Matthew Golden and numerous others. Some big names. That class that felt kind of like the first time U of H was getting its Big 12 recruiting pump, and obviously Matthew Golden ended up being pretty good, but like a lot of Dana Holgorsen recruiting didn't certainly amount to a full class of consistently contributing guys. And also, like, it's not a huge surprise with that fact mentioned that Hunter, a guy who came under the previous staff, is exiting. We saw a large number of those players either exit immediately after the coaching change to Willie Fritz or kind of a slower trickle in the portal window sense. Guys like maybe AJ Halsey, Anthony Holmes Jr., and Joseph Manjack. We'll say, acknowledging I am not a Division I O-line play expert. Nobody's paid me to evaluate O-linemen or coach them. And I don't take it as a given that U of H will be able to find a significant upgrade in the portal at this position, because O-line is very hard and U of H is operating on the lower end resource-wise of the power conference programs. We'll just say it, though. This specific departure isn't one that fills me with fear about the future of this O-line. Bobby, do you think I'm minimizing the impact of Demetrius Hunter's departure here?
No, man, I will just save my notes, say not trying to be a jerk here, but I would be surprised if he plays on a P4 level. I know getting getting O-line talent is kind of difficult in the transfer portal, so maybe he'll make a surprise and pop up somewhere because he has P4 experience. But I wouldn't be shocked if he is playing at a lower level, or not even a lower level, playing at the FBS level, but at a school like a North Texas or Rice or something like that, somewhere in the American, something like that.
Yeah, I chuckled a minute ago because I have almost that verbatim note. Not that I would be just floored, like, no way this guy's playing for their power program, but I will be at least mildly surprised if he researches.
It'll make me raise an eyebrow if it's like he got signed by USC. I'd be like, what did USC see that I didn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even then I'd be like, okay, let's see if this guy actually is starting, because
we had
I
somebody
just
who
wouldn't
went
see
to
it.
USC a couple of years ago from the O-line, and you and I
You
were
were
like,
thinking, you were very it was Ruben Unije, genuinely the worst tackle I've ever seen play for us. And Bobby, I'm going to floor you. It was UCLA. He did not start other than like a game or two for just like Deshaun Foster's terrible team there. Shocker that guy who's a bad lineman for U of H.
I knew I was somewhere in there, like, because I remember when he transferred, you and I were like, what?
UCLA? Like, even though UCLA was expected to be a good team, it's just like a power conference program, huh?
I remember you and I were like, what did we miss something? Is it like, we did not, but we did not.
Yeah, shout out to us there. I do not feel as strongly about Demetrius Hunter as a player. I don't think he was an especially great center, but I would not put him in Ruben Unije's category of unplayably bad offensive lineman that I was incredulous was on a Big 12 team. No knock on the kid. Probably a good guy, but was one of the worst tackles I've ever watched.
Yeah, back to Pancake real quick. It's I don't know if you can, I think you can find a Pancake Hunter in the portal. Yeah. And so with him leaving for whatever reason, whether he's entering the portal, whether he got kicked off the team, whether he got a huge offer to go somewhere else, and he did sign with the Power 5 or Power 4, I do think that you can replace Pancake Hunter. It very much feels like a war of zero kind of guy. Like he's a replacement level player that you can probably find pretty easily.
Yeah, certainly this level. You could possibly move over Mackenzie Agnello, who played a little center this year, played center when he was at New Mexico previously, played guard. You can move him over maybe and get a guard from the portal. I think those are all options here.
Yep.
And the only other pending departure I've seen outside of Hunter was when I looked in the On3 and Rivals portal database and saw that backup defensive lineman Joshua Donnell is pending entry to the portal. I remember the two of us briefly talking about him before the season, maybe also in the last year's premium portal episode we did. Pretty understandable. He didn't play any games this year, only has 1 year of eligibility left. You get why he would want to have that one more year in a program where he can actually get in the field. So I don't begrudge him that one bit. Hope his last season in college is a productive one that he could actually get in a team's rotation on the defensive line.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised when we mentioned him as somebody who was in the portal. I did think that we would have seen a little bit more from him this year. I remember, to your point, that we were kind of excited. I think
you I thought he was a rotation guy, yeah.
Yeah. I think you and I were both kind of like, no, he could come in with a defense that suffered a lot of losses. We could see, and I think you and I expected the defense to take a bigger step back than they did in this year. And I think when we expected them to take a step back a little bit, we expected Joshua Donnell to really come in and be somebody who could keep that from falling as far. Ended up not falling back at all. So, or really, taking too big of a step that you needed somebody like a Joshua Donnell.
Agreed. Alluded to this at the top, we figured this week with a bit lighter slate of things to talk about. We have a bowl game preview coming next episode, but a little too early to do that here with a week and a half still to go between now and the Texas Bowl being played. And so we figured we'd take you, the listeners, down memory lane of all the U of H bowl games of Bobby and I's pretty much entirely overlapping time as dedicated Cougar fans. I would say my U of H fandom truly began in earnest during the 2006 Cougar football season. Shout out to that team. We might be doing some 20th anniversary content for them next summer. But we both enrolled at the University of Houston the fall semester of 2007, met a little bit after that as part of Cougar. RIP, I think, Cougar group. Thus, our years as fans mostly overlap. My plan was to do this in chronological order, starting with the least recent one, the 2007 season right after we both started as Cougar students, and go through all the seasons where U of H went to a bowl, what we remember about the game itself from our personal experience, what we experienced in our sometimes going in person when it happened. Obviously, we'll have more to say about the 2015 Peach Bowl win over FSU than maybe a few other games on the list. Bobby, you ready to take this trip down memory lane?
Let's do it, buddy.
This is very funny. Our least recent bowl, the 2007 bowl I alluded to, is none other than the Texas Bowl. Featured the Cougs taking on in-state foe TCU, who had only in the prior couple seasons actually left U of H in Conference USA for the Mountain West. Bobby, what do you remember, if anything, from the 2007 Texas Bowl?
Sam, I gotta be honest with you, buddy. I don't remember this game happening. Like, I remember I didn't go because I was a freshman, right? And so I was home.
You're right back home on, I figured you were back home on break.
Yeah, I was back home on break. So, like, I remember watching it, I think, but if you would have told me we won this game, if you would have told me we lost this game, if you would have told me, like, I went through the scoring summary and I was like, I don't remember any of this. I don't remember Andy Dalton running in for a touchdown. Like, I just don't remember this game. But like, I remember we played TCU in the Texas Bowl. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't know why, but I remembered this as like a 2006 game. Like the game we played after we won the conference championship game, and I remember being
You're thinking
home watching
Liberty Bowl in
Yeah,
Memphis.
yeah, and
Kevin
so like
Cobb having a 3rd and 42, I think.
yes, and so like everything just like the I don't remember anything from this game because I didn't go, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these bowl games, as I kind of went through, I was like, oh yeah, I was there, I was there, I was there, I was there. I wasn't at this one, and I don't remember it at all.
As somebody who grew up and was living in the Houston area at the time of going to the University of Houston at that time with you, I was here in person. We'll just say I hydrated a little excessively at a student tailgate before the game with friend of the pod, Najee. I vaguely remember him. He still remembered this when I mentioned it a week or so ago. I repeatedly thanked him for coming with me 3 or 4 times, and he told me, please stop. That's the 3rd time you said it. Sobered up pretty well by the second half. The first half is very much a blur. I mean, it's a blur because 18 years ago. But even though, and I remembered this was the season of obviously Blake Joseph and Case Keenum splitting reps at quarterback, but Keenum, I think, took all or nearly all the snaps. He had all 38 of the passing attempts, and Joseph, if he played at all, was pretty sparingly. Was a defensive struggle. UH could never get Anthony Quick Six Ulrich going against Jerry Hughes, and what was pretty consistently year in, year out, a stout TCU defense, even though this wasn't like vintage TCU for how good they were kind of in those Mountain West days under head coach Gary Patterson. Redshirt freshman Andy Dalton, which is a crazy thing to say given Andy Dalton now is like synonymous with like end of his career veteran quarterback. A few years before he beat Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl, he was the Frogs MVP in this one. I remember as I kind of left Reliant Stadium, seeing him on the big screen in the black cowboy hat they give the MVPs as I was sadly walking away from my seats. I also vividly remember the final U of H drive when we were down a touchdown. It stalled out in the red zone right in front of the end zone.
I remember that now.
Where my seats were and where I think they put a lot of the U of H students as well because I got my allotment through the school. Bobby, I was going to do a trivia time on this, but I think this is too deep of a pull, but if you remember this one, I'll be shocked. Do you know who the interim was for this game? Because obviously Art Briles had, by this point, accepted the job at Baylor, and I think it took most of the offensive staff with him. They were like GAs.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that being a thing where, and that was the thing a lot of U of H fans were pissed about.
Yeah, because now it's normal, but back then it felt a little more shocking to us.
Yeah, I don't remember who was it.
It was, again, I'd be shocked if you guys, Chris Thurman, who had been our quarterback's coach, recruiting coordinator. Yeah. This is the only game that he would be a Division I head coach. And it was unfortunately a 20-13 Houston Cougar football loss.
Also, a name that pulled up when I pulled this game up, Terrence Ganaway. What a pull that is. Like, if we were naming some guys, like Terrence Ganaway would have been a good one to pull.
He was the only athlete, it was my physical geology class, that sat in the front and actually took notes, which I mean, nice. No knock on those guys. Cause I was not always sitting in the front. I was certainly not always taking notes. Shout out Professor DVN. He was pretty good, but I gotta be honest, 9 a.m. geology wasn't getting 19-year-old super stoked.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right. Ganaway though, up front every week was there like taking
nice.
notes. I was like, interesting. And then he left for Baylor with Briles. Boo.
Yep. Boo.
Next bowl game was a very significant one. The Cougs made this was their second of 5 Armed Forces Bowl appearances, Bobby. They had one in 2005 before the scope of this segment. This was the first of the 4 that we will talk about, including this one, the 2008 Bell Helicopters Armed Forces Bowl against the Air Force Falcons. This was the first Houston Cougar football bowl game win in both of our lifetimes. This was one kind of like how I remember being at the old layout TCU Stadium. I remember going up in Dustin's Volvo with his lady friend at the time, and I think maybe one other person rode with us, but I couldn't swear by that. And then everything else other than us winning is very vague. What do you remember from this one?
Okay, so I will tell you, I remember this one pretty vividly. I drove up coming from Waco, obviously. Christmas was, 6 days earlier? Because this is
New Year's Eve, yeah.
Okay. So I had gotten a digital camera because my mom wanted me to take pictures of my college, and so I could remember it and things like that. So if you actually find me on Facebook, you can find my Armed Forces Bowl um, album that I uploaded, and so there's probably 30 pictures of us at the Armed Forces Bowl. So I don't remember a ton of like the actual football game. I remember we won, and I'm taking a picture, and I take this picture of the Cougar Paw as we're singing the alma mater, and my thumb or my pinky's like missing because the sun is in it because I didn't know how to take pictures.
I think I remember this picture now.
And you guys were making fun of me that my finger was missing, and we had a friend who was older than us. I think Jeremy's older than us.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like
Yes.
I think I don't remember. And we used to tease him that he was in Nam. And so the caption on the Facebook picture is that me and Jeremy lost our fingers in Nam. So that's like the
This is
big
all coming
thing
back to me now.
Yeah, I don't know why, but like that's what I remember from this game. If we talk football, I don't remember much of anything.
I went and looked up obviously some of the key stuff so I can, jog the memory. I remember this.
Yeah.
Case Keenum broke the 5,000-yard passing
Yep.
mark in this one. Bryce Bell, I didn't remember this, but it didn't surprise me because he had that awesome freshman season, which unfortunately didn't repeat in his final 3 U of H seasons, mostly for health reasons, somewhat for offensive style reasons. He had 135 rushing yards, a touchdown, and 92 yards receiving to cap off a really awesome first year in the program. That somewhat maligned Cougar defense. He forced a couple Air Force fumbles. Philip Hunt had 2 sacks, and I think officially set the U of H career sacks records in his final Cougar game playing back in DFW, where he's actually playing in Fort Worth. I believe he's actually originally from Fort Worth, but certainly from the DFW Metroplex. I just remember seeing the guys in the field being genuinely excited to win the game. I mean, it was cool to see first bowl win since all of us there had been alive, except I guess maybe our friend Jeremy. And to get to our next bowl, it's going to sound extremely familiar, Bobby, both the destination and opponent, because it was Air Force in the 2009 Bell Helicopters Armed Forces Bowl that was coming off that heartbreaking loss in the Conference USA title game at ECU. My thoughts on this one are pretty quick. From my memory, the team still looks pretty kind of not literally hungover, but metaphorically hungover from just losing at the last second at ECU. And gotta be honest, wasn't there in person for this one. Unlike the 2008 game, it just looked like a team that did not want to be in this football game playing a service academy.
All right, are you ready for my memory from this game?
Hit me, buddy.
Okay, so we have a friend named Mike Brown, and Mike Brown loves to dress up, and he loves to paint his chest, and he had a big red foam hat. If any Cougar fans that were at stadiums and road games from 2009 to probably 2012, you'll know the hat.
Quick, right? Bobby also made an Oklahoma State guy really annoyed by wearing it in front of him in Stillwater.
That is correct. So I don't know. You weren't there for this game, Sam.
I was not.
But Mike likes to go shirtless and paint his chest. And I tell you that because it was
I remember from TV it was cold and rainy though, right?
Oh, it was like 34 with snow flurries. And Mike insisted that he was going to go shirtless for this game. And I said, there's no way you're going to do this. And he said, you want to bet? And I said, I do. I said, you cannot make it the whole game without your shirt on. And he was like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. I said, what do you want to bet? Now, Sam, what would be a logical bet to do there?
I don't know, like
50, 100
bucks? Or like, I don't know, but like pay for my dinner after the game or something like that.
Sam, he bet me a Dr. Pepper. I've never said yes to a bet so quickly because, like, worst case, I'm out, what, $3?
Yeah, honestly, 2009, probably like 2.
So, like, I was out $2. So he does it. He's shirtless, right? Shirtless, painted up. Me and my now ex-wife are sitting there. We're like, you're such an idiot. We drive up with him, everything, blah, 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 right? His lips are turning purple. People are buying him hot chocolate. And he's like, and at halftime, he looks like he's going to die. And I love one of my best friends. He's the best man in my wedding, right? He's one of my best friends. And I tell him, you know what? You win. You win. You win the bet. So I let him put a shirt on, and I bought him the Dr. Pepper and everything. The funny part comes, we drive him back to Houston. And his mom wonderful little Jewish woman. I love her to death. Is like, Mike, you didn't go shirtless, did you? You didn't take your shirt off. And we all kind of lied for him. We are like, of course not. That would be dumb. Why would he do that? And he's like, of course I didn't, Mom. No, I didn't. Okay. Next morning, I get a call from Mike and he goes, dude, you are not going to believe what happened. He goes, go to thecron.com. And I go to cron.com and there's Mike, no shirt on, chest painted. I found out it was because his dad goes, it was like the next morning and he gets a call from his dad. He goes, your mom's pissed. And he goes, why? His dad goes, go to the sports section. Page 1 of the sports section is Mike with no shirt on. And his mom obviously saw it the next morning. And we were all like, oh no, Mike.
And now I'm in on this with you. Yeah. I lied on your behalf.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I mean, he's
Mrs.
front
Brown.
page. He's front page of the Huron. So that is my favorite bowl memory of all time is people like, you're crazy, you're crazy. And then, like, looking back, it was for a 47-20 loss. Like, what are we doing?
47-20 loss. Case Keenum threw 6 interceptions, and our extremely bad 2009 run defense allowed Air Force to rush for over 400 yards. Believe it or not,
So
all
funny.
of this added up. Not the most miserable Armed Forces Bowl that we're going to talk about, but don't worry. No. We'll get to that one. But this one, yeah, pretty miserable, and certainly pretty miserable for our friend Mike there.
Yep.
We'll skip 2 seasons ahead off of the injury disaster at the quarterback position that was the 2010 season, missing a bowl that year. Our 2011 bowl, despite, of course, coming off the heels of the extremely painful, one of the most painful Cougar sports losses that anyone of our age or older experienced in the 2011 Conference USA Championship game to Southern Miss.
1 or 2 to me. It's legitimately 1 or 2. It's
honestly,
that one and then the final this past year.
Yeah. I can't think of worse ones
that
than that.
More.
Yeah. And the only reason it's not one, it's twofold. Obviously, the basketball championship. Although, honestly, the basketball championship, as bad as that was, it's like, okay, well, we're still runner up. Like, we still had like one of the most unbelievable. We still beat Duke. Duke with one of Duke's best player. The way we did it, like that's still really cool. If the 2015 Peach Bowl season, which obviously that'll come up, hadn't happened, I think this would occupy even more like psychic sports trauma in my brain. But for me, the 2011 Ticket City Bowl, obviously we'll get your thoughts on it. But for me, that one in real time, it did. I'm not gonna say obviously it would thinking of the word here. I don't think it completely outweighed the pain that was still obviously very fresh after losing to Southern Miss in the championship game. But it was a nice send-off for a number of really great Cougar players. And for that, I appreciate this game, even if it doesn't entirely outweigh everything that happened a few weeks prior.
Yeah, I think the reason why this one always stands out to me is because we were in Tulsa and we beat them, and it was like a monkey lifted off my back for some reason. And I yelled at their fans to enjoy their bowl in Dallas. Hope you guys enjoy your bowl game in DFW. And then here we are. So learned a lesson that day. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I feel like, was this the Penn State team that was kind of affected by the Joe Pa scandal, if I recall?
Yes, that's the exact team.
That was like the thing. I remember that was like a thing where, one, you got to play a power team, a pretty good power team, if I recall. Penn State was that year, but there was, it always seemed in this kind of time when Case was at his finest, and we kind of had this from like 2009 to 2015, where we were just kind of beating teams that we were less financed than and had less money and that kind of stuff, that there was always a reason why they didn't beat us, right? It was like, oh, well, they're dealing with the Joe Pa scandal, or they're dealing with blah, blah, blah. Like, it always just kind of felt like something like that was kind of always happening. And I remember that being like a definite talking point during this season.
First game of newly promoted head coach Tony Levine, who was initially given the interim after someone left for A&M after the disastrous Conference USA Championship loss to Southern Miss. But about a week and a half before this game, Mack Rhodes just gave Levine the head coaching job permanently, and obviously you could do a whole episode on the why of that, but the why there was in the most general terms. U of H trying to find somebody who they thought would be loyal and would stay here, and unfortunately found someone probably not qualified for the job, though a good dude and a guy who recruited a decent chunk of the team that ended up being the Peach Bowl team, which we will obviously talk about in plenty of detail a little bit later. Certainly would have preferred the Sugar Bowl be the final college game for guys like Case Keenum in that senior class, but it was still a nice final game. It was really cool gameplay, and you knew, okay, we're not going to be able to run the ball against this enormous defensive front and linebacker group. So your OC Cliff Kingsbury and Keenum really executed a very pass first game plan well, dropped back almost 70 times, threw for 532 yards in their final U of H games. Patrick Edwards had 228 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Juice Johnson had 12 catches for 148 yards and a receiving touchdown. U of H's defense made Penn State's extremely hapless offense look even more hapless with 3 picks, 2 from Nick Sines, a name I haven't said or thought about in like 13 years. I was looking at that. I saw Rob Bolden and the other quarterback had like 3 picks. I was like, oh, who got it from the defense? And Stewart had the other one. Then I saw Nick Sines. I'm like, Nick Sines. That's a name I haven't thought about in a while.
That is a name. That is a name that has come up before.
The most chronically underweight defensive back I think we've ever had. Nick, if you're listening, I'm not talking shit. Sorry, man.
Also, the mind-blowing thing is Keenum throwing the ball 69 times. That's just, it's mind-blowing because, you just don't see that nearly as much anymore. But 69 attempts in a game is a lot of attempts in a game, especially one in which you score 30 points.
Yeah, 30-14. Cougar win. Cougs got out multiple scores early, and Penn State just didn't have an offense remotely capable of chasing that kind of lead. So nice win, nice send-off for a number of very good Cougar players from that vintage. Our next bowl game might be the one I have the fewest thoughts on, and chances are, even if you're a Cougar fan of our age or older, you might have forgotten this one as well. This was head coach Tony Levine's last bowl game as Cougar head coach. This was the 2013 BBVA Compass Bowl held in Birmingham at Legion Field. Technically very early 2014. My convention here is I'm going to say the season that the bowl game was connected to, even if in some of them the calendar year is like early January of some kind. I believe this was one of those as well, against the James Franklin coached Vanderbilt Commodores. This is actually his final game coaching at Vandy. The only things I vividly remember from this one is that we watched it at friend of the show Ben's apartment in the Galleria area. We ate chips and deer queso, and this game got out of hand very quickly. I believe both of our exes at the time were there at that one. Do you remember anything about this one? Did I hallucinate you even being at Ben's for this one?
No, I feel like I was at Ben's there. In just the most Tony Levine way. 8 penalties for 72 yards. John O'Corn throwing just over 40% completion percentage. Just a vintage, that era of Cougar football kind of game there.
I went back and looked at the box score. I remembered Vandy getting out to a very commanding early lead and just being like, oh, great, this one's over.
Yeah.
I did not remember U of H scoring 24 unanswered points in the third, with only one of those coming on a short field. And then Vandy scoring 17 unanswered in the fourth to comfortably win the game. I remembered absolutely zero about that. I don't remember being like, oh yeah, we're back in this with you guys. I don't remember at all. I just remember after like the first quarter being like, all right, like I think we know how this one's going to go. We might have left it. Honestly, we might have like left at halftime when it was 24-0 or sometime like early third. I genuinely, I'm not saying that's what happened. I genuinely don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember.
Our third Armed Forces Bowl that we're going to talk about here tonight was our next bowl game after the 2014 regular season, 4th of 5 trips to the Armed Forces Bowl that Houston Cougar football has made this century. Also peripherally involved you and me and the same 2 exes who were probably with us at Ben's for the previous year's bowl watch party. This one, because you talked about that other Armed Forces Bowl and our friend Mike, I'm sure getting some low-grade hypothermia for this one. That 2014 Armed Forces Bowl that I was in person for was the coldest I've ever been at a football game. I always kind of forget this, but you'll remember the day before this one, you, me, the respective exes, caravanned up from the north side of Houston to Dallas as y'all were moving to Dallas. It was moving to Dallas. The 2015 calendar year. I believe, I can't remember if I drove your car or your ex's car, but it was like loaded with stuff. I had no rear visibility, and it was like, I'm not going to say it was coming down in sheets, but it was pretty consistent heavy rainfall from where we left in
Yeah.
Houston until we got to y'all's new place in Dallas.
You drove my car because I have a
Yes.
picture of my dogs in the back seat of my ex's car while I'm driving the U-Haul.
Yeah, you drove the
Like, it
U-Haul.
wasn't
She
like-
drove her
it wasn't
car, and
like
my ex
pouring-
just drove his car.
Yeah, and it wasn't like pouring rain, but it was just like a consistent, like just misty, kind of gross, and
Yeah.
it was cold. Obviously, it was cold. Even in Houston, it was cold. And I just remember that drive, and I'm driving the U-Haul, so we can't go too fast because we didn't have the small U-Haul, right? And so I remember, like,
You were
and
getting it though.
the-
You were not grandmaing it out there. There were
No,
times
no,
where I
no.
was just like, how is he comfortably going like 75 in this thing? I'm white knuckling it in your car going like 65 in the rain.
And I remember we were listening. You and me were listening to the same game, like New Year's.
I think
New
it was
Year's
I think
Day
it was
game.
the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, like the Cotton Bowl was going on, and you and I were like listening to it, and we would just like text each other randomly about
Yeah.
it. Like we'd put it on cruise control, and be like, "Oh shit," something like that. So
Yeah.
that's what I remember about.
I forgot about that. Yeah, but I do remember that. I had it on the radio in your car. This
Yeah.
is like pre like podcasts and like
Yep.
Spotify and stuff.
Yep.
The game itself, which was also just as miserable the next day. The
But
easiest way,
amazing.
yeah, the easiest way I can describe it is 3.5 quarters of Pitt just pounding a U of H team with an interim head coach and staff, and then one of the most absurd, unlikely comebacks I've ever witnessed. And my ex's family had actually gotten the game tickets as a Christmas gift, and then we paid for the lodging and obviously getting up there. And I told my ex on the drive where Pitt went up 31-6 on a James Conner touchdown run, I told him, I was like, we'll leave if Pitt scores. And then I think the cold and stuff just like froze both of our brains. And we just didn't think about it. It wasn't like, no, I'm staying. I just kind of like forgot I had said that, yeah, we'll leave if they go up 31-6 here. And from that point on, U of H had 4 different fourth quarter drives, all of which were at least 52 yards, 2 of which were over 80 yards. After Pitt took a 34-13 lead, U of H got the ball back, got second touchdown drive of the quarter, and culminating in a Greg Ward 8-yard touchdown pass to Deontay Greenberry. And then from there, the Cougs recovered back-to-back onside kicks, both of which ended up being on Cougar touchdown drives, including the ultimate game-winning drive. Ward connects with Greenberry again for the touchdown, and then U of H takes the lead on the two-pointer via Greenberry making his very last college reception. Cougs stop Pitt one more time with like less than a minute left and win the game 35-34.
Yep.
Quick trivia time. This is a double interim game. I'm not going to obviously ask you Pitt's, but Pitt had their offensive coordinator, Joe Rudolph, because their head coach, Paul Chryst, had already left to take the Wisconsin job. Pat Narduzzi had been named successor, but obviously wasn't coaching the bowl game. And Tony Levine had been dismissed at U of H after the regular season. At this point, we already knew Tom Herman was getting the job, but was still with Ohio State as their offensive coordinator. Do you remember the Cougs interim head coach for this one, Bobby?
I do not. As soon as you'll say it, I'll be like, oh yeah.
You will. David Gibbs,
Yep.
the first guy to actually put like pretty good defenses on the field for us since you and I have become fans.
Isn't David Gibbs like, wasn't he like a candidate for a job, like one of the big jobs? I feel like I heard that, or something happened, and I remember I sent it to you, and I was like, dude, David Gibbs, there's a name I haven't heard. He was an interim or something like that.
Yeah, maybe he's been interim. I know he was at Tech as Cliff Kingsbury's defensive coordinator, which, man, talk about thankless jobs there. It like did okay there, but obviously like Tech was super terrible defensively for things largely out of his control. As you would imagine, we have probably the most to say about U of H's next bowl game, the 2015 Peach Bowl. I will try to keep it focused on the game specifically, as this was a season. This is probably a game that we could do a whole podcast on. Bobby, you were there. Co-host Emeritus Dustin and I were there. Where would you like to start with the Cougs' dominant Peach Bowl win over Florida State?
You know, it's tough to like talk just about the game singularly because the season was just so magical. Being there was so magical. I have a family connection to Florida State. So we got to talk a lot of trash leading into the game. So that was a lot of fun. Being in Atlanta was a lot of fun. The College Football Hall of Fame was great. The actual game was really good. You saw Greg Ward just emerge as this real true this real true presence and legend in this program, in this game. You scored with Florida State kind of cuts it close. But one of the things I did like is even with being up a touchdown, 5 minutes left to go in the game, you still go out, you still score the touchdown. Ryan Jackson gets a 2-yard run to win this game by 2 touchdowns. It was just super fun, super exciting just to be in an atmosphere like that, right? As a Cougar fan, I had never been in something even remotely close to that, in a game that mattered nearly as much as that, besides probably that 2011 Conference USA championship game, because of what it meant. This was U of H kind of telling everybody that we are here to stay. We are a team that you need to reckon with. Unfortunately, some things happened in the later years after this that kind of took it in another way. But this really felt like the game that got us on the map more than 2011 got us there. 2015 was us saying we're here, and you were kind of hoping that you saw more in the next year, right? You were still bringing back a lot of talent in the next year. So this really kind of felt like a game where you show something here and then you kind of bring it next year. You got a chance to make the 14 playoff, which we saw a team like Cincy do. We were the first real team that even got some kind of, man, I don't know, maybe we should give this team a shot at looking at the at looking at the playoff. They were the first ones to really kind of break through and get those conversations kind of going. Unfortunately, 2016 didn't go how we necessarily wanted it to or thought it would, but that was just something that was really, really just a cool thing to be a part of.
I'll get to the cool stuff from the game itself here in a second. I just remember in the lead up to this game, the arrogance of FSU's fans. And Bobby, would you believe me if I said I have some of those? I found it after a little bit of sleuthing, some FSU pregame comments from the vault to share with you and the listeners. Would you like to hear that?
Let's do it.
It's from the site Tomahawk Nation, where we actually got our guest to preview this game, David Visser, who was awesome. And this is not Mr. Visser, though I read his pregame thing and he was a little bit off on this one. So I am not directing my ire at him specifically. But let's hear, Bobby, what Tomahawk Nation staff member, phenomenal, decent pun, I'll give them that, had to say before this one, but what they thought this game would look like. Houston is a cute story. Their fans are sweet for thinking they have a chance. On offense, Dalvin Cook runs for 250 yards. Then Houston will try a sellout against the run, and Sean McGuire will throw for 300. Put me down for a long Kermit touchdown catch. Harrison will have a breakout game, and Tate to get a red zone jump ball touchdown. On defense, the FSU D-line is going to destroy Houston. Derwin James will once again be deployed as the murder weapon. The duo of J. Ram and Quez will suffocate the Houston wide receivers. Look for Terrence Smith to have a huge game. Will probably be the healthiest he's been all season. D-Walk and Sweat will have fun with it and tally 5 combined sacks. FSU 45, U of H 17. Cougars are a cute story, though. Really cute.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook went off for 18 attempts for 33
almost
yards.
A full 2 yards per carry, Bobby.
Yeah, he almost did it. He almost did it.
Future first-round pick almost got 2 yards a carry against the 2015 Houston Cougar defense and Landon Roberts.
Hey, I will say they
fumbled deep in their territory also to set up a first-half Cougar touchdown as well.
I will just say Sean McGuire did throw for 300 yards. He threw for 392. That's because they were down for most of this game, by the way, buddy.
I was incredulous. And I know he was partly hurt because I think that was part of it as well. But in person, I was incredulous. I'm like, this guy, you're telling me this fucking guy is a Power 5 quarterback, that this is the level that, we couldn't hang with that. We couldn't hang with guys like Sean McGuire. I was like, are you serious? And part of that was like, he did hurt his ankle pretty severely in this one. So and he threw 4 picks. So I'm probably at least like somewhat holding that against him, but
yeah, he was so hurt he threw for 392. I just love that, like, in this
empty calorie yards, like you said, though.
Yeah, when this time in Cougar football was just so great because, like, and in any college football, when a smaller team would beat a bigger team like this, you would hear like, oh, they didn't actually want to play in this bowl game. They were disappointed they weren't in the playoff.
Every time the team, like UCF experienced it in the years immediately after us.
Yep. It's like they never wanted to be there.
Auburn didn't want to play. Florida State didn't want to play. Fuck that.
Yeah, no, they did. They played Dalvin Cook. Like, I would understand if it's like now and half your team sits out and they enter the portal or something like that. Like, no, man, y'all played Dalvin Cook, okay? Y'all played your starting quarterback for most of this game. Like, Don't try and tell me y'all didn't want to win this game or play in this game.
Some other great Peach Bowl moments. The trick play where DeMarcus Ayers took the ball in what looked like a reverse and then threw it to a wide open Chance Allen in the end zone for a touchdown. I remember that was the end zone we were closest to, and we just saw Chance Allen get open. Like, oh man, he like catches, he catches it, and there's not like anybody within 10 yards.
I remember that. Yep.
That was awesome. William Jackson III going full extension on an underthrow McGuire deep ball to pick FSU off late first half. After FSU cut the lead to 24-17, you had Greg Ward on the third long with pressure in his face, delivering an absolute dime to Ayers to keep the drive alive there. And this was a really cool one. Kyle Postma, your backup quarterback, hero of the Memphis insane comeback earlier in the regular season, and I don't know if you remember this, Bobby, Dustin and I had a camera in the pregame. Our Cougs fans benefactor, shout out Ray, gave us a camera, and we just like filmed stuff pregame. I was behind the camera. Dustin was doing the talking to people, and we interviewed his dad because we interviewed a bunch of Cougs fans tailgating. Super nice guy. Kyle Postma breaks off a 29-yard run on third and long to end up setting the final touchdown of the game up. I think it was a 2-yard Ryan Jackson run, and we're kind of like, that was wild. We looked at each other like it would be Kyle Postma making a big play here. Of course, you probably know my favorite non-game part too, and you participated in this, I'm sure, as well. When the game was on ice and FSU fans were all just like leaving with
doing the mocking.
We were all mocking. I was full chest into that, man. That was awesome.
Okay, so I sat up in the upper level with my ex. We were sitting up there because we had actually planned a vacation to Atlanta before the game was announced, and so it just happened to work out. So anyways, I'm up in the upper. I'm not like top, right? We were at like the bottom of the upper, and this was before Mercedes-Benz. Remember,
this was old Georgia Dome, man.
Yeah, this was the Georgia Dome. So whenever the game first started, I was like in this mindset, like, let's just go, let's go, like not get overly excited. And like at this point, we were running and we were like picking up like 4 yards of rush, like 4 or 5 yards of rush. And I just remember being like, all day, baby, all day. I'll take 4 all day. And there was this like 10-year-old kid next to me, and Florida State would make a play, and I would just hear, all day, baby, all day. And I was just like, oh. So me and this kid are like kind of going back and forth. And then when we go up and we start doing the mocking chant, the kid's like distraught. He's not quite crying, but I'm like, ah, like full chest.
This is not the day I'm going to be the bigger man, and I wouldn't have been either.
So yeah, and the parents are just like, you asked for it. You started talking shit. That's what happened.
This is your life lesson here, Junior.
Yes. So now there is some like 21-year-old kid who's like, that guy at that game was an asshole.
God, yeah, you're right. Like that kid might be Florida State now, honestly.
Yeah, watching his team win 2 games a year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, he is certainly reaping what he sowed. I mean, everything about that game and day in Atlanta felt surreal. I mean, considering where we've been, I mean, we talked about it, like the not super high heights of the 2014 Armed Forces Bowl, the 2013 BBVA Compass Bowl, and the, I think the staggering low of losing with a chance to almost get there in 2011 to 4 years later, man, while that wound is still at least a little bit fresh, be back in this game, to have Herman get on the mic there in stadium and say, look around you, Coug Nation is back, even knowing what a atomic bullshitter and liar and insincere man Tom Herman was. I got goosebumps, Bobby, when I just said that. Imagine him saying that from my memory. It was a 1-on-1 day to be a Houston Cougar fan.
Yep. That and the Duke win.
Oh yeah. Quick little like Dustin and I specific stuff aside. He flew back not like 4 hours, maybe 3 after the game because he had to be back in Houston to cover a New Year's Eve overnight shift at the store he was a manager of. So I was like, all right, buddy. Like when he took his Uber back to the airport, I'm just like, okay, cool. I have $30 in my bank account until payday because I traveled a ton to see U of H. Obviously, wasn't making the money I am now. I'd paid for my U of H fall semester as well. So I did what you do when you have $30 left in your bank account, Bobby. I ordered Domino's and watched the just suffocatingly dull Alabama-Michigan State CFP semifinal that I think I fell asleep during.
Nice.
It was genuine. That was my exciting Atlanta 2015 New Year's. Like I had the friend who we Dustin and I's former roommate, who we actually were able to get we paid for him, but we were able to get a part of a nice block of seats in the lower level because of this guy that donated tons more money than we would ever dream of. So he was like, yeah, man, you want to go out? We're going to this place. And I'm like, unless you're comping all of my drinks here, buddy, I'll just be chilling. Domino's back at our Motel 6 knockoff near the Atlanta airport.
Me and my ex went to an improv that night, and we had a great time.
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
yeah, we went to an improv and then rode the train home after midnight because
The Marta, right?
yeah, the MARTA. We rode the MARTA back to our Airbnb after that. So we went home, kind of changed, went to dinner, then we did that improv. That was a lot of fun.
I want to go back to Atlanta with more than $30 in my bank account.
It's
That's
a
one of
fun
those
little city.
takeaways.
It's a
Like,
fun little
yeah, like
city.
I enjoyed it. Like Dustin and I went out and stuff the night. Like we did some stuff the
Worst
night before
airport in
the
the
game.
country, though.
Oh
Worst
yeah,
airport
just
in the
like
country.
yeah.
Not even close.
I don't want to get too sidetracked. When I flew back on New Year's Day, I ended up at the 40/40 Club bar. I got like a beer or something like that and nursed it for 2 hours until my flight. And there was some guy who was like super drunk who had missed his flight to Cancun. It's extremely frat bro guy. It was very funny, but I will not get sidetracked by that funny story. To bring up something much less funny, which was uh, our next bowl game, the 2016 Las Vegas Bowl game. I have very little to say about a very lifeless 34-10 loss to San Diego State. It was Major Applewhite's first game in charge. He was named the head coach about a week before. Todd Orlando, your DC, had been named the interim immediately after Herman left. And I think, Bobby, with years of hindsight now, this game certainly gave us an idea of what we would be in store for the next 2 seasons of Major Applewhite.
Yeah, man, it was ugly. Like that's all. That's all you could say. You got. Yeah, I remember when it was announced, there was a little bit of concern. Like, actually, San Diego State was a pretty good team this year. They're like 10-3. They lost the conference championship game, I think, if I recall. Like, they were just. It was just one of those games where you felt like, yeah. The crazy thing here, kind of looking back, I didn't really remember a ton from this game. Greg Ward had 22 rushing attempts for 0 yards and
Oh
one
yeah,
touchdown.
our O line, as it kind
Yeah,
of
just
often
was.
did that year, was just
Yep.
getting eaten alive by the
Yep.
San Diego State defensive front.
Yep.
I remember friend of the pod, Najee, the guy who you might remember 9 years prior accompanied me to the Texas Bowl against TCU in 2007. I remember him asking me, because I had traveled a bunch in 2015 and some in 2016 to road games. He's like, "You gonna go this one?" And I just told him some variation of like, "I'm not going to Las Vegas, man. There's nothing for me there." And then like
Womp womp.
less than 4 years later, I'm moving out there to live and take a job, and now obviously very much enjoy living there. The only other note I have from this one is Donnell Pumphrey of San Diego State broke the Division I FBS all-time
Yep.
career rushing yards record in this game. I remember just very sadly sitting on the couch at the place Dustin and I lived at the time, being like, "Cool, this game is just us. This is Greg Ward's last game, and he gets to see us just crown a bunch of guys in the other team." Just a sad finish to a season that, coming off the Peach Bowl the previous season, had started with so much promise.
Yep.
And when we talked about this segment amongst ourselves yesterday, I actually thought the 2013 BBVA Compass Bowl in Birmingham would be the game I had the least amount of things to say about. I think it actually might be the 2017 Hawaii Bowl, where the Cougs took on Fresno State at Aloha Stadium and lost 33-27. I remember I was DVRing this game back home in the Austin area where I was living for just pod review purposes. I watched maybe 50% of it live at a holiday party I was with back in Houston with my parents and some family friends. I remember nothing else about this game, Bobby. I had to go to the box score to kind of piece together like what happened here on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I remember. So my dad grew up in Hawaii for a little bit, so he's always kind of like the Hawaii Bowl's always not like his favorite bowl or anything like that, but just like
It's a cool
one
Christmas
that,
Eve thing, though.
yeah, and he was always like, it's always just kind of a thing that we always had on when we had a party because one of the things we do is I'm half Mexican, half white, right? And so what we would do is on Christmas Eve we would do Mexican food. So dad would make fajitas, we'd get tamales, rice, beans, all that kind of stuff, and we would invite a bunch of people over. And so we did that, and a bunch of people are over. And I remember telling my dad, like, "Oh, we're playing in the Hawaii Bowl. I want to make sure that we're watching the game. Can we at least have it on?" He was like, "Yeah, of course." And then I just remember sitting on the couch while everyone else is kind of having drinks and talking and hanging out, and I'm trying to watch the game, and I'm just like, "What am I doing here?" So that's what I remember of the game is just being like, "Hey, can we make sure the game is on here?"
It's cool. Like I completely get. Like it's a great Christmas Eve accompaniment. I had to look up the box score. I wish I remembered Ed Oliver scoring the game's first touchdown.
Me too.
I wish I had more of a vivid memory of that. That was U of H's first and only lead of this game. Fresno would tie it shortly after and then never let U of H do anything more than tie this game. This is a deceptively close final because U of H scored one of those like less than a minute left in the game touchdowns to
Mm-hmm.
cut it. So like theoretically, yeah, maybe they could have gotten the onside kick. I mean, certainly 3 years before the Armed Forces Bowl, you got some onside kicks, but probably is deceptive for how competitive the Cougars were against Fresno State, which certainly seems like not very. But Bobby, unfortunately, not the biggest or even close to the biggest humiliation bowl of the major Applewhite era, as we will shortly find out.
No, it was not.
Because our next bowl is one that I remember, unlike the previous bowl, but certainly wish I could forget. That was the 2018 Armed Forces Bowl, the merciful fifth and final Armed Forces Bowl of the century, fourth and final of the ones we're going to talk about tonight. The Cougs lost 70-14 to the Army Black Knights. And I remember in the lead up to this game, because obviously we were doing the podcast at the time, and just being like, this defensive front without Ed Oliver is just comically bad at stopping the run, which you're missing Ed Oliver for most of the back half of the season. This is an Army team that runs the option and is probably their best team in at least 30 years, maybe the modern era. And I was expecting pretty modest things. I didn't think the Cougars would win or compete that close in this one, but it went even worse than the nightmare scenarios. Army rushed for over 500 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. I was DVRing this, but missed the first quarter and a half going on a date to a winery in Wimberley whose name I can't remember, but it was a nice winery. By the time I got home, U of H was on the verge of going down 35-7 in the second quarter. And I think by the time I tapped out in the game, it was 56-7 at some point in the second half. You were living in DFW. I cannot remember this. I didn't ask you beforehand. Did you go to this one in person?
Nope.
Good call. Good call.
I feel like I had tickets to the Stars game that night. Like, I'm just trying to piece this together. Like,
I would not normally say good call not attending a U of H game, even one that we had doomed, but like, man, probably a good decision there.
But like, I remember the game was on and I was trying to like, and I told her I didn't want to watch the game because she's a Cougar as well. So like, and so I remember just asking her like, I told her like, don't give me spoilers or anything like that, but you can check the score and do all that, blah, blah, blah. Right. We kind of had that conversation. And I remember I told her we're on the DART, the light rail back to parking. Cause like at American Airlines Center, it's better to like park off site and then take the light rail in. It's just better traffic wise, all this kind of stuff. And I remember I looked at her and I was like, what am I going to want to watch this when we get home? And I remember her pulling up her phone and going, nope. And I was like, huh. I said, how bad? And she goes, why don't you go ahead and look? Because you're not going to watch this game. And I was like, that bad? And she was like, that bad. And I pulled it up and I was like, that bad. All right, thanks. Good looking out, Boo. Good looking out.
This game ultimately prompted the very necessary move of showing underperforming head coach Major Applewhite the door, though obviously his replacement ended up being only a more expensive failure than the one that Applewhite was.
Yeah, I hate how excited I was about the guy who replaced him.
Yeah, same. A lot of us probably wish we could be more rational, but that's, you're not
you were
to
still
really
a P5 level coach. I mean,
yeah,
like, it felt really cool. It felt
and I want to go fully back
baby.
into that. Like one of those that like I still feel like even though there were obvious warning signs and some of the stuff that went wrong at West Virginia very clearly went wrong at Houston, still think West Virginia fans don't appreciate, like he did actually I think have a better time there than West Virginia fans wanted to admit, because obviously they were very salty about losing him to a group of 5 school, but also they weren't wrong about how it ended up actually going for the guy. So don't really have a leg to stand on there.
Correct.
Our next bowl game was, I would say, certainly the weirdest game of all the ones we're going to talk about. Dana Holgers's first bowl game here. I'd almost forgot about this one. I put placeholders for all the games, then got to this one and realized, wait a minute, I don't have anything between the Armed Forces Bowl and the 2021 Birmingham Bowl, which we'll talk about here in a second. And that would be the 2020 New Mexico Bowl that actually occurred in Frisco, Texas, because of New Mexico's stricter COVID-19 measures in Texas. Neither team came into this game with a winning record, but it was oh, hey, look, these two teams have enough players to travel to a bowl game kind of season. So, bam, Hawaii and Houston playing in the New Mexico Bowl that's actually occurring in Frisco. This was notorious former Rice, Tulsa, Pitt, and Arizona State, and also Hawaii head coach Todd Graham's last bowl game as a head coach. This would blow up pretty spectacularly for Hawaii and Graham the following season. Player allegations, just him being a pretty bad fit for a unique head coaching job because he's an asshole. I don't know if that's an on the record thing about Todd Graham. But on this afternoon in December of 2020, the Cougs would, for a very brief moment, give Todd Graham some actual positive momentum. The Cougs got into a 14-0 hole they would never come out of. Clayton Tune threw 3 picks. Ultimately, Hawaii lost. Or excuse me, the Cougs lost to Hawaii 28-14. I remember when the game started saying to myself, all right, at least we have some Cougar football today. Yep. And then an hour or so in, wishing to myself that we had just, I don't know, been like, oh no, we have too many cases and can't play this miserable football game instead of
that's kind of my memory too. It's just like I was just excited there was football on. That was just kind of the whole vibe that 2020 year.
Exactly. We did get a little over 12 months later one of the, I would say, undebatable high points of the Dana Holgorsen era here, up there kind of with the Marcus Jones kick 6 win over SMU, maybe the 22 opener against UTSA before that season went sideways, as the Cougars made their second trip to Birmingham, Alabama on this list. I was actually en route back to Vegas with a different ex of mine after a holiday trip back to Texas to see our families. I would say I watched somewhere between 50 to 60% of this live as cell data allowed in rural New Mexico and Arizona. I did watch it in full via DVR before Dustin and I potted on the game. And this was basically a road game. The Cougars were facing Auburn and one of the least popular coaches in their history, Brian Harsin, in Birmingham. They were missing their starter, Bo Nix, and offense was in pretty short supply for most of this game. Cougars led 10-0 early, but struggled against an SEC defense. That wasn't really a great Cougar offense. That was a team that was mostly backstopped by Marcus Jones, that defense. Auburn got a 13-0 lead, but the Cougs retook the lead. Clayton Tune on second and long finds Jake Herslow along the sideline for a game-winning touchdown. Cougs win 17-13, get their 12th win of that season. Bobby, you can go whatever direction you like after this, but I know you're dying to talk about the Vulcan Trophy that U of H may or may not have defaced in that game.
Yeah, that's like my big memory from this game is I don't understand what happened to the crotch on the trophy, because like I went into some I've asked former players about this and coaches, and no one has given me an answer. But if you look at the trophy presentation,
I think he burned a cigar. I think they put out a cigar on it. That's my completely unsourced belief.
I think it's something like that. But like if you watch the trophy presentation, because I remember there were a ton of pictures of the trophy because it had a dunk on it. Like it had an ass, right?
It did.
And so everyone was taking pictures of it. And I remember looking at it at the presentation, there's the trophy. And then on the plane, the crotch was completely rubbed black. Like the front was silver when they got it. By the time it was on the plane, the crotch and the crotch only had been like rubbed to where it was like black and just black. And like I don't know what happened to it, and I have questions, and no one's answered. I've asked people who were in that locker room, and no one can give me an answer. And I just need to know what happened to the Vulcan Trophy's crotch. I know it sounds weird, but like, what happened to it?
We need to know two things from that era: what happened to the Vulcan Trophy's crotch, and who has the footage of the Hard Knocks documentary that they tried to do before the 2022 season, before that one went sideways. I don't think we'll get answers on either, but that's my wish list there.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
I thought you were doing the oh my God because you were like, I know where it is. I'm like, buddy, tell me off air, but I figured it was that.
No, the only thing I know that I have that is like Cougar lore is I think I haven't. If not, I think I sent it to you guys actually. Is the Vinny Ravelli rant on CougarBaseball.com when that first happened. I have it somewhere.
Hell yeah. Last but not least, not ending on a super exciting note here, but this is our most previous played bowl game. The Independence Bowl against ULala in Shreveport. Probably, even though neither of us were here, I think based on weather data, because it was below freezing for this.
It was cold. It was cold. I remember it was cold because I thought about going.
Coldest temperature game of any of the ones we've talked about tonight. We'll try to remember the one big positive, and that was coming off a pretty disappointing 7-5 regular season. Your final season, the American, didn't come close to contending for the conference title as you had hoped in the final season. It was exciting to see none of the key players, chief among them, Tank Dell and Clayton Tune, opted out of this game. Pretty much all the guys who were healthy and available came out and played this game, and it wasn't pretty. Nobody watching this game would have been surprised this Houston Cougar team was closing out a disappointing season. You were down 16-6 to the Cajuns at the half, but credit to the Cougar defense, finishing off a mostly miserable season. They held the Raging Cajuns scoreless in the second half, picked their quarterbacks 3 times, including one from future Coug, Zion Chris, who unfortunately would give us a taste of what Zion Chris in a Houston Cougar uniform would probably look like. But yet you can see Toon and Dell connecting for the final 2 touchdowns of their respective college careers to give the Cougs a second half comeback in a not sexy, but still very happy to get a 23-16 win. Overall, ugly game, but what do you remember from this one, Bobby?
Yeah, I remember it being cold. Like, I thought about going because,
like sub-freezing. It was sub-freezing there.
Yeah, like, Shreveport's not that far of a drive for me. Like, it's probably 2.5, 3 hours. So, like, that's not I'm going to Houston for the Texas Bowl, right? Like, so, like, that. But I just remember the week leading up to the game, tickets weren't very expensive, but it was showing it was going to be like 25, and it was like, is that really what I want to go do with this? I don't want to pay $30 plus gas, because the game, according to this, was at 2:00. So you could go to the game, come home, make it a day trip kind of deal. And I was like, is that really what I want to do with my time? And I decided not to, and I'm very happy I did.
Yeah, not a FOMO situation as much as I'm sure you have been dying to do a little gambling in Shreveport's establishments there. Yeah,
sure.
If you're like, I want to go to a place that's like Durant, Oklahoma, but a little more down market. Boom, Shreveport, baby.
I could use a worse hotel than Durant, Oklahoma.
I want to go to the part of Louisiana that doesn't have the delicious food or the unique culture.
Yeah, I want to go to the bad Louisiana. That sounds
exactly.
Oh, and it's going to be freezing cold.
And it's going to be freezing cold. I'm going to watch a team that has just, for 12 games this year, constantly disappointed me, including you being one of the brave Cougar fans that was there when SMU almost scored 80 on us in our final head-to-head with them.
Yep, I was.
Can't imagine why you weren't dying to get on over to Shreveport for that one.
I sure was there. I remember yelling at that team at that SMU game when they had given up a touchdown on every drive that me and 10 other people on the field in the stands could give up a touchdown on every drive. Because I was like row 2 for that game.
Ended on a down note, but that was the most recent bowl game, I think. Not putting too much faith in the 2025 Texas Bowl to probably create better memories of the most recent bowl game for your Houston Cougars. But this was fun, buddy. I appreciate you humoring my idea here and really taking this trip down memory lane to talk about some Cougar bowl games.
Of course.
And before we go here, we'll try to keep it tight because we are running a bit long here, though. Again, running a bit long on a topic that we enjoyed very much. Your Houston Cougar women's basketball team was back in action, split a pair of non-conference games. Actually, your last 2 non-conference games, we had the Education Day game, the day game that is 99.9% Houston ISD and surrounding ISD school children. The Cougars found a way to get past the Montana Lady Grizz 60-54, largely via second half comeback, and less recently, last Saturday, lost on the road 63-41 to the New Mexico Lobos in Albuquerque. Bobby, what takeaways do you have from this game and just the Cougar women's basketball season to date?
Yeah, man, it's really just the same thing that we keep seeing in game to game to game is can't score. Defensively seem to be pretty good. Turnovers are a bugaboo for this team. It really is that simple and something that we're going to see just, I think, throughout the year. I think, I went to a website that is basically the Ken Palm for women's basketball. And look, I don't
her hoop stats.
Yeah,
which is very good.
I'll be honest, I don't pay for it, so I get the very basic stuff. This team to the eye test, Sam, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, just looks better. Like, it just looks like they do things better.
I would agree.
The interesting thing, though, is, like, you look at the statistics, and they don't. Like, as weird as that sounds, like, they are kind of looking at this and trying to make sure I was doing it right. They are much better defensively this year than when I initially looked. I thought it was like worse, but they actually are much better defensively this year than they were last year. Offensively, though, they are worse this year. And I thought that was a little bit surprising because I kind of watching this team, I was like, they seem to not just, they don't seem to be as bad at that right? As I remember watching multiple games last year where you're just like, we can't find the ball in the bucket at all. This team seems to be a little bit more streaky as I watch them. Like they'll go long stretches without scoring, or they'll go less long stretches without scoring, um, than last year's team did. I watched last year's team not score for like 11 minutes at TCU, which is, Sam, I don't know if you know this, not good. But the differential between the offense and the defense last year and their rating that that Her Hoop Stats has, which is really based off points scored per 100 possessions, is the difference last year was negative 9.9, whereas this year it's or I'm sorry, the rating last year was negative 14. This year it's a negative 2.3. It's a lot better difference between how bad your offense is and how good your defense is. That spread is much tighter this year. So you just kind of see that. You're also playing at a much higher pace in terms of possessions for each team per 40 minutes, which I think is weird considering this style Huey wanted to play was a very high pressure, up tempo kind of style. But the problem was Houston often was broken when they pressed. Other teams often were able to break the press against those Huey teams. So you look at possessions per. If you go back, Huey's first year was 2015, 2016. Am I correct on that, Sam?
I think it was 14-15.
14, 15. All right. So if you go back, this team has so far, right, has the second most possessions per 40 minutes at 76.3. The next highest was the 2017-2018 Cougar team that went 20-12. So yeah, I think the pace is pushed because the Cougs are kind of getting out and not getting broken down into the in the half court game. That's just kind of my perception of it.
I don't like the cross sport comparisons, but it almost kind of reminds me, like you mentioned, the offense being slightly worse. I mean, like Willie Fritz's first football season, like the offense was not good in either Dana Holgerson's last season, certainly not Willie Fritz's first season, but it was like you took a slight step back from an already bad offense, but like looked a little bit more disciplined at times, looked a little bit better defensively. I think as imperfect as cross sport comparisons could be, I think that's kind of what you're seeing right now with Matthew Mitchell. I'm leading on a positive note, Bobby, because I just have two of the uglier offensive stats I've ever seen. Like from the New Mexico loss over the weekend, you were 9 of 39 on 2-point field goals. You didn't make you didn't make 25% of your 2-point attempts.
Yeah, man, you can't find the bucket. And one of the other things that I've just kind of noticed, you just look at the shot charts from the games, and this team can't shoot the three. Like they cannot shoot the three. And I understand like the college three is hard because it's only slightly shorter than the men's. Like it's a tough shot, and I don't think it's as important in the women's game as it is in the men's game in terms of efficiency and stuff like that. But man, if you watch these games, you see defenses, playing soft much, much more than you ever have before. There's no reason to respect this team's 3-point ability, and it just clogs up the middle, and it leads you going 9 for 39.
Yeah, as I say, if you can't keep your opponents at least somewhat honest by making these shots, like it's going to have obvious downstream problems for your offense. I will say, in the win over Montana's not a great team, but you got to just find a way to win them sometimes. You officially surpassed your win total for all of last season by mid-December. That's cool. Big 12 wins are not going to be easy to come by this season, but it still tells you, even if some of the numbers are indicating that, hey, this team is really struggling offensively, which your eyes would also tell you if you watch this team this season, I think this is still a better team at winning basketball games. You gave me the two teams that have most recently represented the University of Houston women's basketball, and hey, like who do you think is more likely to get a win from a remotely close opponent? I'd obviously pick this year's team and this year's coach, which isn't to say that this year's team hopefully is going to be something like what Kelvin Sampson's first team was to the men, which is to say you saw some signs of the culture taking root here, but quite honestly, it's just about that stuff taking root more than it is actually winning basketball games at this point, because it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and you can see it just in the way they carry themselves
Yeah.
on and off,
This
like
Jay
on the
Jones,
court.
even though she had an awful shooting game today against Montana, 6 offensive boards. That's incredibly valuable in a
Yep.
game where shots are at a premium.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of thing that, again, just shows the culture, and you're hoping that there's a couple of players on this team that we remember fondly, like we do those early Samson teams.
Yeah, exactly. Haven't been a great free throw shooting team, but Amira Abdur Rahim, one of your post players, generally the players who struggle most with free throws. She goes 3 of 4. TK Pitts gets you gives you 2 steals and 12 boards as a guard, and some clutch plays down the stretch late. Like, you see it, even if Montana is a team that you would hope to be winning against and winning against by bigger margins in the coming years, that you're seeing something take root here.
Yep, that's exactly it, and I think the again cross sport comparison, just to kind of keep it, feels like soccer where you're gonna be you'll be a little bit better, but you may not be qualifying for tournaments or anything like that, but you are going to play schools that you haven't played tough a little bit tougher. The one that I mentioned, I think last week, was that Texas Tech soccer game where you saw Texas Tech really have to come out and really try those last probably 10 minutes in a game that they thought was going to be easy. It feels like, well, I'm not going to say we're going to do that against like Iowa State or somebody like that, but there's going to be a team that thinks we're going to be the doormat, and we're just not going to be the doormat this year.
Exactly. That's the goal. Very tough test out of the gate, though. You will be going on Sunday to West Virginia to take on a consistently very good West Virginia program. Their coach Kellogg was longtime SFA head coach. It was quite good there, and then finally jumped his opportunity to coach in a power conference at West Virginia, where they have been quite good in, I believe, his 3rd year now since taking over there. Familiar name, Bobby. I did not realize this is a player you might remember, Gigi Cook,
Yeah.
who was in the program the last 2 seasons. She was a former big-time Maryland recruit, played at the start of her career at that program, tore her ACL her first season at U of H, redshirted, and then was a regular on a not very good U of H team last season. She leads the Mountaineers with 16.2 points per game, more of a slasher and scorer, kind of at the free throw line, but obviously is their leading scorer. She's someone to watch there. Always West Virginia and SFA before that under Kellogg, very tough defensive teams. I actually remember our first Big 12 season, we scored, you'll remember this, I believe 0 points in the first quarter, our first time playing in Morgantown under the previous staff. So difficult opponent, not really a game that's going to be, I think, one of the ones we're looking at this team to really show the signs of progress. I think given the way they've been playing recently, they've only lost twice this year, and none of those losses are especially recent. Challenging one. This is where you see really where you're made up of mentally with this new staff and largely new team.
Yeah, it really speaks a lot to Gia Cook in her development that she goes over to West Virginia and is their leading scorer. Really says something about the previous administration and why they may have needed to not be coaching here anymore.
Yeah, and certainly she's surrounded by a better team there, but obviously development difference there, and she wasn't getting the development stuff under the staff that certainly she would be under Kellogg at West Virginia.
Yep. And I remember Kellogg was a name that you and I both were like, hey, that would be a pretty good little fit around here. And then we didn't move on from our coach, and he got the job at West Virginia.
But also maybe he might have looked at this job and was like, nah, you're not, because we were never among the better AAC resource jobs. It's like, nah, I think I'll wait on one of the jobs that actually supports women's basketball. And he's there now and doing quite well. Is not a surprise.
Yep.
It's been a meaty episode, Bobby. Take us home, pal.
All right, well, that is it for this week's episode of the Scott and Holman podcast. We appreciate you guys so much for listening, and we will have an episode next week before the holiday. So if you are traveling out, be ready. You are going to get a couple of hours worth of content, maybe at least an hour and a half. I know we're going to preview that LSU game, and we'll be talking about that Arkansas State game. So we want to thank you so much. I would give you holiday blessings here. I do know it is Hanukkah right now, so if you are a part of the tribe, happy Hanukkah to you. If you are celebrating Christmas, you'll get that next week. So, but just wanted to thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any feedback for us, the best way probably to reach us is going to be on social media, Twitter at SH Podcast. We can hear your feedback there. You can find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. Or if you have almost completed your year of no social media, you can email us at shpodcast@gmail.com. And if you are getting a Christmas bonus and you say, you know what, we want to throw a little bit of money behind the work Sam and I do, we would greatly appreciate that. For as little as $5 a month, Sam just put out an awesome premium basketball episode, which bad co-host alert here, haven't got to listen yet. It's on my to-do list, buddy. Don't worry about it. But $5 a month, you can get that awesome content. If you want to give more, you can certainly do that as well. That is SH Podcast. That is podcast PAWDCAST at all those accounts. Sam, I think I went through everything. What do we always say here, buddy?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!